Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you all for joining. I'm excited to welcome JJ into the show. So welcome on in, JJ.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get started with you telling everyone out there listening or watching who you are and what you do.
Well, I've been writing books for the last 15 years, which is kind of crazy because I have dyslexia. So that's not something any of my English teachers in high school would have thought I was doing. But I was in tech for a long time, over 2 decades. And once I really started having kids and saying yes to all these things in my life, I realized how difficult it is for women in business. And I started capturing best practices of women that were 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me,
Mhm.
not only for my own benefit, but also for the women in my network, because I felt like there were no real cliff notes of how to keep everything going in the right direction when you're overcommitted or you're going through a big challenge in your life. Like, how are you going to really keep yourself in the right energy and space? And that was the basis of my first book. My second book is the difference of how to work in your career and on your career, because most people don't know there is a difference. And if you want
Mhm.
to get to the executive ranks or on a board or any executive really position at all, you really do have to work your network. You have to have sponsors. You have to be aligned to the right work and get that visual exposure at the executive levels. So that was kind of my first two books, is really how to maneuver the professional landscape when you have so much going on at home and at work.
Yes. I love all that because it's all so true. And not to take us down a different path today, but something you said that I think is really important, especially for a lot of women, is that a lot of times when we're in our career and we want to move up, the ladder, so to speak, we forget that. Or I think a lot of times you just think you'll be rewarded based on the fact that you do good work. Oh, I do great work. I'm always on top of things. I'm moving, projects. But like you said, it really, when you really get to that place of like elevation, like you've got to work the network. You've got to have people advocating on your behalf. And you said something that I think is most important. You have to be aligned to the right projects. Your projects
Yeah.
have to be tied to business priorities. They have to be bringing in, revenue for the company. Like that is how you elevate to that next level.
It's so true. And so many of us think our good work's going to get us there. And what the research shows, and just all the work that I've done, is that you do have to be working on your career, which
Mhm.
means you can discuss your accomplishments. You have a story around your brand. You have people in the organization that know what you're working on, or even if you're an entrepreneur, even people in your community or in your professional community that know the work that you do, because those are the people that are going to be talking up for you and about you when you're not in those rooms.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes to all of that. All right. So let's start out by talking about a topic that you discuss in your book, Seeking. You mentioned that women are searching for more meaning, and for more impact. Why do you think this is happening now?
Well, I write my books based on what I go through because I feel like I am sort of my reader in a lot of ways. And my
Mhm.
first two books were really about stretching outward, reaching, striving, getting there, getting it done, getting recognized. And what I realized in my mid 40s is that that's all well and good, but oftentimes you still don't feel really filled up or fulfilled or have the joy you're experiencing.
Mhm.
And I went through that personally on so many levels that we don't even have time to discuss today. But what I learned through these really kind of tower moments, if anyone does tarot, is when everything kind of goes to shit and you're like, what is happening in my life? Why don't I have more excitement? Why don't I have more joy? I'm working all the time and I just feel so depleted in so many areas. I really had to stop the way I was living my life. And I was stretching so much on the outside, and I really wasn't connected on the inside. And for me, I just really started turning to more energy practices and people that kind of were outside of the realm of where I would turn for leadership or career advice
Mhm.
previously.
I got you. And I think that that's really important is because I mean, most of the times, honestly, the people that are going to, be a part of your community, they're going to have a lot of similarities to you. So when you're creating or writing, you are obviously, you've sort of got yourself in that lens and also just being able to share your own personal experiences because that's the thing I think that's most important. And a lot of people sometimes don't do. It's just some people are just prescribing something as opposed to like talking about their own personal experience, which I think we all know, but I think you still have to say it is like the most authentic version of you is the one that people would rather see, the one that people would rather connect to.
Definitely. And I felt like when I started really spending time getting to know myself and working with different energy practitioners, like
Mhm.
Reiki, like acupuncture, I was doing all different types of energy work. I started realizing that I was burying a lot of things inside, a lot of things
Mhm.
that maybe I didn't really feel 100% about, or things that I wish, I could almost forget that were really altering kind of my impact because I was deciding like, am I good enough? Am I
Mhm.
worth it? Should I be doing this? And I just realized I had a lot of really sort of internal hurdles to work around to find more joy in my life.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because so many of us experience that. I mean, I enough? Like, no matter how many times we look ourselves in the mirror, right, how many times we write it down, how many times we say it, it is something I think that is recurring for women to always think in a moment, am I enough? Am I going to be enough? And I think it's like it's okay to say that you may have an internal struggle there because I think like that's just real life. There'll be moments where you're flying on the high, you're like flying high and you're like, "Yep, I got it." And then there are days where you're like, "Wait, what? Can I really do this?" So I think it's just important to I think it's important to continue to give yourself that grace and saying that today I may feel this way, right? But then obviously you always can pour into yourself. But I'm also a fan of like going into like if you have a feeling it's okay to honor the feeling. Like
Yes.
it's okay to like that's something that my therapist like taught me a long time ago. It's like it's okay if something happens and you're sad about it, or you may have a moment where you feel down about something. It's okay to honor that because it happened. Don't let it take up residence in your mind, but but honor it and then figure out how you move forward.
Completely, completely. And I'll jump back to your first point is, the subtitle of Seeking, which is what I really think the book does, is it really shows people like you can raise your energy and you can sidestep your self-doubt to align with your life's work. And one of the things I've done in meeting with all these women around the world, for the last 10 years is that so many women are sitting on the sidelines thinking,
Mhm.
okay, when I'm ready, I'll go in the pool, or when I'm ready,
Mhm.
I'll take a step. And the reality is we can't keep waiting for women to be ready. We are good enough as we are
Yes.
right now, even though society keeps telling us we need to be better, we're not good enough, we're not working like a man. I feel like women, to your second point, have so much intuition, they have so much knowing, and that society makes us doubt ourselves more than we need to.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, JJ. Yes to all that because you're so right. So many people, I hear so many women who have these dreams of like, doing this. I want to start a business. Or even if people who are professionals and working, oh, yeah, I really want to look for a different job, but there's always like a but. And I'm just like, just do it. Like, just jump, do it. And I think like, I like to like, say that me personally, like I like to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks because you can't just I mean what is it, analysis paralysis or paralyzation by analysis, whichever way. You can't sit and overthink. Like if you sit and overthink, like there's always going to be an opportunity to change something or make it better. So I like to say that I'm a pivoter. Like I mean if some I put something there and it isn't the thing, then I'm going to figure out like I'm always trying to think about like what's plan B and C and D if the A doesn't work out. And I think like when you just continue to like, it's so like disheartening when you talk to someone and they're like, well, I have this plan. And then they have the plan, but then they continue to say, yeah, but I mean, once I do this thing, this thing, this thing, and then once I get it perfect, then I'm going to go out with it. And then it's like you talk to them maybe 6 months later, and they're still talking about the same plan. And when I get this thing, and this thing, and I'm like, just do it. Like, just take the first step. Like, sometimes all you have to do is just make a move.
That is true. The universe is here to support you and they're waiting for you to lean into what is calling you. So I agree with you 1000%. And with my research with women in tech and STEM, is that women that lean in before they're 100% ready actually are adding to their self efficacy bucket. So self efficacy is having a vision for where you want to go and believing you can achieve it. But the only way that you fill that bucket is by leaning before you're 100% ready. Because if you lean in before you're 100% ready, there's room to grow, there's room to stretch, and there's room to prove to yourself that you can get something done, even if it's not perfect or even if you're not 100% ready. So I'm a huge advocate of leaning in 60%, 70%, like it's go time.
Yes, I like that. Yes. Lean in, ladies, lean in.
It is, and
Right.
we need you. We need every woman to
Yes.
show up because the planet is lopsided right now. We have way too much masculine energy, even though we all have feminine and masculine energy. The world is so masculine, and we need more women at more tables, more women
Mm-hmm.
in positions to get elected, more women leading, creating, designing, innovating. And if we're all
Yes.
waiting to be 100% perfect on things we've never done before, we're not going to get any farther than we are today.
Yes. As I say this all the time, and no offense to my male listeners out there, it's just like being in the workplace. I mean, all the men who aren't necessarily qualified for the role, they're like, yeah, but I'm still going to go for it because I want this role. And you'll see women on the other side, like, or who are dissecting the job description and trying to like, okay, trying to align like each task. And I'm just like, no, like, are you a fast learner? Do you have transferable skills? Because a lot of times women have often done some of the things that women want to lean into or want to grow more in, they've already been doing in a different arena. May not be every day in your current job, but probably in their personal lives, in groups that they're in. They've been doing these roles. So I'm like, we have to figure out how to tell that story on your resume and to potential employers. Because guess what? If it was a man on the other side, he wouldn't even have the qualifications, nor would he be trying to figure out how to put those qualifications on there so that they appeared to seem like they were right for the job. He'd just walk right in the door. He'd be kicking it in. So I think that's so important for like, women to just just lean into it and take that chance.
Yeah, and it's not, we just need you. And I feel like you'll learn so much about yourself if you just make the phone call, send the
Mhm.
email, do the
Yes.
research, show up at the meeting, sign up for the certification. Whatever it is for you that you
Mhm.
feel like you want to do, you should lean into it. And I feel like this book for me, my third book, Seeking, is really so
Mhm.
vulnerable because I share my stories and the stories of so many other women that were doubting themselves but leaned in anyways. And I think for
Mhm.
many of us, we have to dig into our life stories, like things that happened when we were 4 and 14 and in the second grade, and maybe our first relationship, because there's
Mhm.
stories that we've gathered from other people that are sitting in our head telling us, not now, you're not ready. Who do
Mhm.
you think
Mhm.
you are? And for me, that's where I really leaned into energy practitioners, healers, alternative thinkers to kind of get around my stories because
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff in life I still want to do. And I don't want to be denying myself those
Right.
opportunities because I'm stuck on things that happened a decade or 4 decades ago.
That's so true. So also in the book, you talk about the 74 key findings to help your readers raise their energy, sidestep self-doubt, and align with their life's work. And some of these include money, like mothers and relationships that we pick? How do some of these impact our life's path?
Well, let's talk about relationships because I feel like that's
Yes.
everyone can relate to a relationship, whether it's a girlfriend, a guy friend, a
Hmm.
significant other, a family member, maybe your mother or father. I think one of the most interesting questions I've ever heard, this was actually by Tony Robbins. I was watching his Netflix series. He said, which of your parents did you seek the most love from, and what did you have to do to get it?
Mm, interesting.
And it's funny because I feel like there's so many, like if people have issues in their relationships, there's this woman in my community that she's got divorced and now she's dating this man. And I asked her, like, what are the challenges? And then I asked her what the challenges were with her first husband. And funny
Hmm.
enough, they were pretty similar. So people show up in your life wearing different costumes, essentially. You're
Yeah.
trying to learn the same lesson. So whether it's self worth, whether
Hmm.
it's, prioritizing yourself, people bring forward lessons for us. And so if you're in a challenging relationship, ask yourself, what's the lesson? What am I supposed to learn from this person about myself? Not about
Hmm.
them, not about whatever this issue is, but what is the lesson I need to learn about myself? Because I feel like relationships are the closest things to your heart and are often have the biggest lessons.
Hmm. Yeah, and like you said, I love that you said they show up wearing different costumes because it's essentially like if you don't figure out or don't get to the root of it, then you're just going to go from one relationship to the next relationship, meeting somebody in a different costume, but bringing the same like issues to the relationship.
Mm, exactly. Exactly. And relationships can evolve.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to like leave them or not talk to them, but I do think it's good to dissect kind of what's happening with it.
Hmm.
And, maybe you do a birth chart or a human design or an Enneagram. There's all kinds of tools you can use to kind of learn about yourself and the lessons you're here to learn. And sometimes you can even put other people's numbers in to get their details. I think for many of us, we forget that we're here to learn. I think
Hmm.
a lot of us think we're here to make money, to have a family, to live our life, but really we're here to learn. So your lessons are going to come through the people you spend most time with.
Hmm. And I'm glad that you recommended using some of those tools because that was like one of the best things I ever did, especially like in my marriage, was like to whatever, if I was doing any type of assessment or something, then I have my husband do it because it's just easier because then I have an understanding. I have an understanding for like what drives him, what, motivates him versus like me just saying, well, here are my needs. These are the things I need. And you better like meet them. And it's just like, I think it also allows you to, like you said, understand the person, understand yourself more, but then also you're able to give grace to each other because you understand like what those factors are that motivate them.
That's the truth. It's like information is so powerful. And I've done that with my kids and even my husband too. But
Hmm.
I'd love to jump into money because I feel like money is such a big thing for women. How you spend money, how you view money, what energy
Hmm.
you give money. And I think whether you're an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, a stay at home mom, it really doesn't matter. We all give energy to money. And a lot of women that I've come across really use fear associated with money. Well, I can't spend that money because, or if I
Hmm.
spent that money, or, I wish I could, but I don't have the money. And I feel like a lot of us view money with a fear based lens. And one of the lessons I've had to work through is how I view money. I grew up with no money. And then I got a lot of money in my tech career. And then I lost some of that. And then I got it back again. And I feel like I've been on this journey with money for decades. And it
Hmm.
finally realized that money is really a tool and I can give it any frequency or any energy that I want. And now I really look at money as a way to advance what's important to me, make investments in people, make investments in myself, make investments in things that I do every day and use money to do that. And so I really think of it more as an engine than a
Hmm.
scarcity theory, which is what I grew up with.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. JJ, what do you wish you'd known 30 years ago? when you
Huh.
graduated graduated college about the work, about your work?
I think one, I wish I would have realized that it's a marathon and not a sprint, right? I
Hmm.
worked so hard all the time. And I also wish I knew that like things are happening for me, that I'm not a victim in my life. It's not happening to me. She didn't do that to me. He didn't do that to me. It's really just an experience to learn more about myself. And I wish I would have known that life is happening for me, meaning that I can lean in and lean out of different situations. And with some lessons, I wish I learned faster than others.
Right. Yeah. But hey, I like it, but at least you learned those lessons, and you got what you needed. And I do appreciate, like, yes, life is not a sprint. So I know you interview energy practitioners and light workers inside of your community, focusing on share. Why are you focused on sharing these practices within your community?
Well, it's interesting. I've been doing leadership of some sort most of my career. I started a women's group in 2008. I've done part of ERG groups. I've taught at leadership events. I just don't think that leadership training is going to move the needle for women. I just don't think it really does what we need it to do. And I have found that working from the inside out is what makes more women leaders because they're more confident in their own energy. They're sidestepping their own self doubt. And I feel like these energy practitioners make us feel more aligned and better understanding of who we are and kind of why we're here. And so I have been working to interview all different energy practitioners around the world and
Mhm.
all the different practices inside Together We Seek, because I want to give women a glimpse of things that they can leverage based on what's calling them to help them remove the obstacles that may be holding them back.
I like it. Yes. And I think it's really good to, like, have that alternative way of learning and thinking, like you said, because yeah, a lot of the traditional leadership tools, like, and resources, they're not really designed for women. I
Like
mean,
Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, they're all super masculine energy.
yeah. Awesome. I like that. How can we as women tap more into our life's work?
Oh, well, I used to think that tapping into your life's work or aligning with your life's work was something down the road. Like eventually I'll get to that. But what I
Mhm.
realize now is that the lessons that I'm in, the work that I'm doing is all part of where I am in my cycle of life. And that
Mhm.
I really have to pay attention to the whispers, the things that come to me. And they come to me through thoughts, and people reach out to me and ask me questions. And I feel like for me, things come to me now that I'm more in the present moment. And I would say my first 35, 40 years, I was not in the present moment. I was planning for the future, reflecting on the past, and I had to really take up a mindfulness practice.
Mhm.
And this is not something I jumped into freely. I was sort of forced into mindfulness training. But it is one of the greatest gifts because it allows me to see, to have space between myself and my thoughts. I thought I
Mhm.
was my thoughts. And so I would just drive and do and be and just get there all the time. And now, after years of mindfulness training, I can just be an observer of what is passing through my head and decide if I want to hold on to it or not. And having that space gives me space to receive messages. And now I get messages from people, I get thoughts, I get, messages through books or things I'm reading that give me insight to kind of the work that's ahead of me.
Awesome. I love that. So, would you tell the audience out there how anyone watching or listening can work with you?
Well, I am out in the community. I do a lot of keynote speaking. You can find me on Google. I would look up seeking and the name JJ, because if you just look up seeking by itself, you're going to end up on a dating site. We don't want that to happen if that's not what you want. So seeking and JJ. Uh, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm out working all the time and I answer my own DMs. So feel free to just drop me a message.
Fantastic. And as far, so we'll put all that information, everyone, in the show notes so that you can connect to JJ. Well, thank you. This has been great. So much great information. And I think just different way of thinking, which is always, welcome, just to like sort of go outside of the everyday norm of like, you should do something this way. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the discussion today.
Well, thanks for having me. And I really hope that somebody listening to this will do something different today after listening to us.
Yes. All right. So we're going to move into three things with JJ. I'm going to ask you three questions just to help our audience get to know you a little bit better. And the first one is a two-parter. So how do you start and end your days?
Hmm. Well, I like to say that I start my days listening to a meditation of some sort, or just waking up and giving myself a few minutes to just like feel myself in my bed, just really just be like, recognize that I'm here, that this is the life I'm living, and like the day ahead of me is an opportunity, and have gratitude for that.
Mhm.
And that really kind of sets the tone that I'm not jumping out of bed being like fast and furious. Now I can do this because I have teenagers now. Like when my kids were 1 and 2, I would jump out of bed because of a screaming child. So I think you have to give yourself grace wherever you are in your life. So if you
Mhm.
can't do it right when you wake up, you can find other times. But I think going to bed too, I'm always listening to something positive, something spiritual, something motivating. And I listen to books on Audibles all the time. And that's the way I go to bed too.
Awesome. Love that. Number two, what's a goal or intention that you set for yourself this year? And if you don't mind sharing, where do you stand with it?
My goal is to raise my frequency, raise my energy. And to do that, I have to really pay attention to how I talk to myself, how I
Mhm.
talk about others in my head, even if I'm not saying it out loud. I have to pay attention to what I watch and what I read. And anytime I'm in a situation where I feel like my energy is starting to plummet, or I'm in a conversation that's just real negative or fear based, I often just say, hey, listen, I'm just not doing the fear thing right now. So we gotta change the topic, or I'm going to move on to something else. And I really am just really mining how and what energy I'm sitting in most of the time. Like I'm really working to be in more love and gratitude than fear and anxiety.
Mhm. Awesome. All right. And the last question is, what is a book, podcast, show, or anything that's inspiring you at the moment?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I mean, on Goodreads, you'll see all the books I read. I'm very much into energy, alignment, soul work, positive attitude. I feel like I love The Lost Kitchen. It's a show right now that I'm watching where this woman has really no formal culinary skills, but she
Mhm.
charges the same as the French Laundry. And she
Mhm.
empowers all these women in her community that also have no culinary skills, but they create this amazing experience for people that they send a postcard in to come to her restaurant. And I'm working on a destination on Lake Erie up in Ohio, where I'm working on a healing center. And I'm really taking a lot of just tips from her of just using all the things you have around you to create amazing experiences for people.
Awesome. Love that. All right. And the last question before I let you go is, what are three things you'd like the audience to take away from our conversation today?
Hmm. The first is you're exactly where you need to be. The second is learn the lesson you're in as fast as you can so you can move on to bigger and better things. The third is you can do anything you set your mind to, anything. If I'm writing books, you can literally do anything you set your mind to. I think in the fourth is give yourself grace for where you are and appreciate how far you've come.
Awesome. Awesome. Love those. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Well, JJ, you can always come back here and share with us in the future. And I wish you nothing but success in the future.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.